Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 23 of the Audible Farm podcast. This week I'm sitting down with Ronley King. He plays guitar in the Jay Clyde Band. I'd never really listened to him until recently. I put him on my Spotify playlist, and holy cow, they're a great band. It's not my preferred leisure domain of music, but holy crap, they can really play, and they're really good. I met him at a jam night not too long ago in Bode at the Red Lantern, and Scott Dahl had set up a jam night for some people up here in northern Iowa, and I went to that and played some jams and got to play next to him, and he's really good. And I asked him if he wanted to sit down and do a podcast sometime, and he came up here and joined me for a while, and we had a great talk. It's a really good podcast. I'd never really sat down and talked to him before, and it was great. He's a great guy. He came over and played a little bit of guitar before the podcast started, and man, he's just really good. He's really good. So enjoy the podcast as much as I enjoy listening to him play guitar. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Check it out. It's episode number 23 with Ronley King.
It's the Audible Farm podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
So sitting down today with Ronley King. Is that correct, Ronley? I've never heard a name like Ronley, no offense, but is that like a combo of two names, or is it a nickname, or what do we got?
Yeah, it's a little bit different name. I've never got to meet another Ronley thus far in my life.
One of a kind.
So yeah, it's kind of funny. My dad's name is Ronley King.
Oh.
And my mom, she wanted a Ronald Jr. Well, for whatever reason, he wasn't up for that, and he decided, hey, let's put Ron and Lee together. So. I just usually go. Nowadays, if I introduce myself to somebody, I just go by Ron. But
so you're like one of a kind, broke the mold after they made you. Never gonna be another one ever again.
One of a kind.
You got
extra special.
You got it, man. Well, you also came over and played a little bit of guitar here to start it off. We kind of just dinked around on one of my guitars here, and I noticed you were doing some chicken picking.
Yes.
Oh, super dig it. How'd you get started chicken picking?
Well, I guess it's kind of. I could point to probably one person that kind of led me down that road. You're probably familiar with Chris Carr.
Yeah.
In Fort Dodge.
Totally.
So Chris has been very pivotal. Sorry, I can't speak.
That's cool.
Pivotal in kind of pushing me into the music thing and doing kind of what I do now, a big influence. But he kind of gets into some of that country picking, and he kind of I don't know what's the word, introduced me to some players and some types of music, and I just kind of grabbed onto it, and I don't necessarily consider myself a hardcore chicken picking country guitar player, but it just kind of adds. It's one of those styles that it can blend into so many other styles as well.
Yeah, man.
A lot of it primarily, like if you're doing, like double stop type work.
Dude. Oh,
and,
yeah.
Especially I'm a big blues fan, right? So there's a lot of those country lines and country guitar picking that really molds perfectly into, say, blues playing and even rock playing and it's kind of it's all about taste. So there's certain times where if you're playing a straight ahead rock tune, you're not gonna the whole time, or you might get kicked out of the band. But it's just really fun, and I love that straight ahead train beat type country.
Yep.
I practice a lot on playing those types of tunes, and it's just, I don't know, it's something that I got into, and it's just kind of stuck with me playing wise.
Yeah, like the first time I ever saw you play was actually at that jam night up in Bode that we went to last month, and
yes, great time.
I brought a buddy with me from I go to Iowa Central right now. I'm going back to school, and I brought a buddy with me from down there, and I was like, usually there's pretty good people at these jam nights, so let's check it out. And we walk in, and it was you and Bruce Borchers, and I'm like, oh, I know Bruce is good. Let's see what this other guy's got. And about 20 seconds into a song, it was just like, Jesus, all right, this is awesome. It's
man, it's just. It's such a blast. Like, and I say this to everybody, that's maybe not from the Fort Dodge area, or, we're in Humboldt right now, but
Uh-huh.
just in this little, within, say, a 20, 30-mile radius, there's so much talent,
Yeah.
so many great players, and you'd never think it, because, Fort Dodge, I still consider like a small town Iowa, right?
Yeah.
And but I mean, you can travel 5 to 10 miles, and there's just great musicians littered throughout this area, and Bruce is one of them. And so, getting to go up there to jam sessions like that and play with those guys who, I mean, Bruce is a legend,
Oh, yeah.
around the area. He's been playing in bands for forever, and
Oh, uh-huh.
and getting to learn from him and getting to play with him, and it's just, that's irreplaceable as a guitar player get to do those kind of things. So.
Yeah, getting to experience that kind of stuff is really cool. I played guitar for quite a while, kind of quit in my 20s for a while and picked it back up in my late 20s, and just I was always super nervous about going to jam nights, like what's the atmosphere going to be like, how much better is everyone going to be than me, just anything like that. I was always kind of just like, I don't know, like I know I can do this, but I don't know how well I can do this, and the first couple I went to, I didn't partake in because it was just like, a little nervous. Let's just let everybody else have their fun tonight. But the first couple I got to partake in, you just realize that everyone's there just to have fun, man. And
Oh yeah.
and the best part about it is if you're in my shoes where you don't feel like you're up to snuff with everybody else, you get to stand next to people that are absolute rippers on the guitar, drums, singers, bass. I mean, it's nuts when you get to go out there and blend your simple style with somebody else's complex style and see what comes out,
Well, and at the end of the day, like, as I've grown as a guitar player, and I don't know, I don't consider myself anywhere near where I want to be as a guitar player, but any sort of advances that I've made in my playing technique, or being inspired to learn something different, has always came from playing with other people.
Yeah.
And you can't be afraid, like, excuse my French, but you can't be afraid to, like, get your ass kicked, like, because it's like it's that moment where you're like, this guy right here is just killing it, right? And I don't think I can even match that. But what that does to you is, not only in the moment it makes you play better, but then when you go home and you practice and you see some of those things that other folks are able to do, it just gives you inspiration to sit down and play for 2 or 3 hours, 4 hours at a time, and learn and grow as a player. So, and I think that's one of the, we're pretty fortunate just around Fort Dodge that we have some folks that are trying to provide those opportunities, like Scott Dahl.
Yep.
And you got to give props also to Jeremy Ober.
Yep.
Jeremy, I mean, he's been running the jam session up at
Patty's Pub.
Patty's Pub,
Yep.
yeah. So he's been doing that for a couple of years now, I think,
Uh-huh.
because the jam had went away, and when I was 18, just kind of getting started playing in the music scene around here, the jam was still a thing, and I think it was a couple of years later it went away. But Jeremy has brought that back, and there's so many folks that I've discovered just by going to that off and on. I can't make, unfortunately, just with life and being busy, I can't make as many of them as I'd like to. But every now and then you run across somebody, and it's like, where the hell have you been?
Exactly.
Where'd you come from?
Well, that was the first Patty's Pub event I went to. I was actually invited on short notice because somebody couldn't go, and I'm really close to the area. So I said, heck yeah, I'll jump on this. So I go down there, bring my gear, I jam out 5-10 songs. Then it's like, who else wants to get up here? And it was like 11:30 before I got to go back up there, because there's just killer after killer after killer of guitar players. And it's like, I didn't know you existed. There was some, I'm bad with names, unfortunately, but there was like some 17-year-old kid that got up there and almost showed everybody up, and it's like,
oh yeah,
where's this guy at? Where's he been? And there was like a couple father-son duos that went up there, and one played bass and the other played guitar. I mean, it's super cool to go out there and just actually see, like you said, how many talented people are in the area, because there's not a shortage of that around here.
for sure.
And that might have been one of the most surprising things when you start going to these jam nights, is just how many people come out of the woodworks and drive from quite a ways. I mean, there's people that'll, like the jam night in Gowrie, there's people that came from like 20 minutes north of Humboldt, and that's like a 45-minute to an hour-long drive one way just to go to a jam night to play 10, 15 songs or something. And
Definitely.
it's totally worth it, though, when you get to go experience that and be around those people. And
Well, and it provides an outlet, I think, for some. Like I'm fortunate that I play in a band and we get to do the, in the summer times and throughout the winter, several different projects. I get to play pretty frequently.
Yeah.
But there's some folks who just, they haven't found the band yet. They haven't found that outlet where they get to play, and so, I'm just a firm believer that to ever grow as a player, you got to play live.
Yeah.
You got to do it live. I mean, it's a whole different. There's something to be said about woodshedding, right? That's how you increase your technique. That's how
Yep.
you, whatever style you're into, you perfect your craft. But until you actually get in front of a crowd and you know how to handle yourself in the moment, because emotions are on high, right? You're about, okay, I'm coming to that point of the song where it's time for me to take one, but it's handling that emotion and trying to funnel that into the instrument, and you don't get to learn that feeling until you play live.
Yeah, it's definitely something I would hearken it kind of like to public speaking. Like, you can talk
Yes.
around 20 of your friends, okay, it's no big deal, but if you put 20 strangers in front of somebody, 40 strangers, 100,
Oh, definitely.
It's palms are sweating, heart's racing, words aren't coming out quite right. I mean, you can still talk like a normal
Definitely.
person, and that's kind of like playing the guitar. Like, you go to hit your solo, first note doesn't come out right. Doesn't mean you fell on your face. You can still pick it up after that, but you got to be able to make sure you hit, come in clean on there and hit a solo that's cohesive and don't go too long with it or don't get, way too far out of the style zone. You can't be like super shreddy on a slow song or something like
exactly.
that, so.
Exactly.
So, I mean, there is something to it because basement jamming is totally one thing. You can always hook up a backup track to anything on your laptop from YouTube or something and jam along with it. But if you got it in front of people, sometimes the nerves will get you. Like the sweaty palms will get you.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's really good advice. You were talking about playing a lot of shows during the summertime, and I know what band you're in, but let's hear you say what band are you going for here?
So my main band and has been the mainstay for going on 8 or 9 years now is the Jay Clyde Band.
Yeah.
We are most of the folks in the band are, I would call our hometown is Manson, Iowa.
Yeah.
You've got Grade and Jake Merritt.
Yep.
Grade plays bass and Jake plays drums. We've got Neil Anders, who is just an absolute beast of guitar player. He's the other guitar player in the band. He's actually from Oldebolt. Corey Waller, the lead singer, he's from Manson as well. So we've kind of got that. Like I say, Manson's kind of our home base. But yeah, Jay Clyde's been going for about 8 or 9 years now, and I'd say here in the last 2 to 3 years, we've actually slowed down for the amount that we play. A lot of that's due to, I'm married now.
Yep.
Corey's married now, and everybody's kind of has serious relationships, and it's kind of it's almost the growing up aspect where hey, playing 2 or 3 shows a weekend every weekend of the year is just not a reality anymore.
Yeah.
So, but with that, I would say that a lot of the shows that we're playing now, we've kind of we're doing a lot more of like the town festivals.
Yep.
A lot more of bigger stage type shows, and
Uh-huh.
and that's kind of the point where we're at, and we still love doing bar shows. We still love playing smaller places, but a 6 or a 5-piece band with a full-time sound guy. Oh, also Mark Gales. He's I would mention him. He's our sound guy.
Oh, that's awesome. You got a resident sound guy for the band.
Yes.
So you pretty much
Yes.
guaranteeing yourself to sound good almost everywhere you go.
Well, he has that talent button
Yeah.
that he hits
I've heard it before. I've heard
that makes us sound better. But no, Mark is excellent, and he's actually inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame
Yep.
as a sound engineer as well. So we're very lucky to have him, and he comes out and helps us and brings certain pieces of gear, and I would say that as a band, we definitely went up a notch when Mark kind of got on board and helped us out.
Yeah, not enough good things is said about the sound man at shows.
Exactly.
That's definitely the most thankless job at any live music event at all.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe next to the guy that has to clean up afterwards. Like
Yeah.
like I'll tell you what, like a lot has to be said for the sound guys. A bad one can make a good band sound bad, and vice versa. A good one can make a bad band sound good. I mean,
Oh, definitely.
for the most part,
Definitely.
there's not actually a real talent button that you can just push and make it sound that good. But
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
man, Patty's Pub, they've almost always got a great sound guy there. I mean, it's I
And
don't know
Mark does that a lot of the
a
times.
lot.
I
Yeah,
believe.
that's what I thought.
So,
I was not 100% sure.
Yep.
But yeah, man, that's got to be really cool. I guess I never really even thought too much about that, having your own sound guy at a show, because usually one guy in the band takes over all the sound equipment and he's the guy, and sometimes
Yeah.
you get like a bassist standing way out in the audience with a wireless bass, and he's trying to dial everything in,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't bad, but it's also kind of tough to do two things at once. And
Well, and I would say, like when we first started playing, and I think this is kind of the natural progression of most bands, right? So you start out with a very small PA, and you've got one or two guitar players in the band that both want to be heard, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
and that's a little bit easier to manage in smaller clubs. Like for instance, another project that I'm kind of working right now is Sean Minikis, who's actually my brother-in-law. I can talk more about Sean later, but
Cool.
we kind of got a little blues project going on, and we played River Hops Brewing here a couple
Nice.
weeks ago, and I mean that's a very small environment, right? And there's just no need for us to really mic up. It's just manage our volumes. But when you start playing, I think it's almost required when you get out, like say a street dance or a town festival where you're most likely on a hay rack or a trailer, and you're just completely out in the open. Well, it's hard to manage volume. I mean, you've always got the drummer's a volume, right, and then you've got a couple guitar players and a bass player, and it's just nice to know that you've got a guy out front that no matter what, say my settings that night are a little hot compared to the night before. Well, he's making sure that all the levels are correct, and we're getting a quality product out front.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things. If all your levels aren't quite in unity from one another, he can help boost that. Like, let's say you're going to hit a solo, so you hit this, whatever pedal you want to hit with your solo. It doesn't crank your volume very much, and he knows you're hitting a solo, so he can turn you up just a little bit and push you through the mix.
Definitely.
And you can't do that on the fly if you're one of the people running sound and you're also playing the music on stage. It's just not possible,
Well, and there's certain people who make it work. Like I know the Chris Carr Band. Like he runs. I forgive me, I can't name the brand of the system that he's using off the top of my head, but it's a wireless. They're running the sound from an iPad, right? And he's got everything dialed in perfect, and in that band it really works for them. I just know that I'm such a culprit of, okay, it's 11 o'clock, we got the last set. I'm gonna rock this one out.
Yep.
So I've been guilty of turning up every now and then. It's like, so that's more for my ego than anything.
Yeah.
But that doesn't do any favors for out front. So it's just nice to have someone there keeping us in check and making sure everything works.
That's exactly right. It's almost like having somebody, like you said, just to keep you in check, to make it. Because it's not like egos rule the world, but I'll tell you, I've totally been guilty of the same thing. You get everything dialed in, and you're at the club, and the guy in the booth way up at the top gives you the thumbs up, and you get ready to go, and it's like, all right, here we go, volume from 4 to 5 now. How's that? Figure that one, like
exactly.
So I mean, I think everybody's probably done it once or twice, but if you, it also, I don't know, if you start doing too much stuff like that, the sound guy might just be like, well, I don't care then, and then, or you run into the situation where it's like, I'm in a club and I'm not mic'd up, and then you get way too much sound imbalance coming from one side of the stage, and
definitely
you feel it, you feel the hurt. So having a good sound guy is definitely a necessity.
We've played shows where they've had in-house sound, or the sound was provided, and we're probably the opening band, so nobody really cares about the opening band, let alone the sound guy. So, we've played some shows where it's like, they walk off, and it's like, okay, well, they're fine. I'm kind of like, oh man,
yeah.
At least try,
I can only recall that happening in one of my bands on one occasion, but it was really funny because the singer was just like, can I get a little more guitar in this monitor? And then wait, where's the sound guy at? And so the singer just like puts the mic down and goes outside. And he's like, he's having a cigarette. And he went and got the sound guy and brought it back in. It was like the funniest thing I'd ever seen in my life. But it just totally works, man.
Definitely.
So, you said you were gonna do some other blues stuff. Let's hear about that.
Well, so and it's not really a large scale venture, but just to kind of go back a few years, right? So another Chris Carr, I would said, he's very pivotal. Sorry, I don't know why I'm having problems saying that word.
I don't know.
Pivotal. So Sean was very instrumental in kind of helping me along in the band world and getting me into playing music, and so we've been friends for 10 or 11 years now, and he's actually my brother-in-law at this point. So he married my wife's sister, and
awesome.
We've been friends all this time, and we've always wanted to have a band together, which I will say Sean did play in Jay Clyde for a summer.
Okay.
When we were in need of another guitar player, but we'd never really done a band thing together, and I don't know, it was probably last November. I don't know, we were probably having a beer or something together, and we just said, hey, we're related now. Maybe it's about time we get on that band thing. So we've been having a blast. We've got a couple shows booked right now, and obviously Jay Clyde takes precedence in the summer, but here kind of in the winter months, we've got Jeff Foreman on drums, and we've got Nick Shelley on bass, and then Sean and I are playing guitar and kind of trading off vocal duties, but just playing. It's a straight ahead blues show. And it's a lot of fun because for me, and I think most guitar players, kind of have this. It goes back to the ego thing, right? Like you want to just play and you want to keep shredding it, right? And like in Jay Clyde, we're for the most part, we do some we'll do some detours on the set, and we'll have some fun, and Neil and I'll grind at it and play some solos and stuff, but we're more rehearsed, and we kind of have a show put together. So the room as a guitar player to play is a little bit empty. So this is kind of a change of pace where Sean and I just get to have fun. Jeff's an excellent drummer. Nick's a great bass player, and just kind of like gel, jam, and have a good time. That's the whole premise of that band.
Yeah, I can totally feel you where you have that. You're talking about going back a few years, and you just kind of you just want to keep playing and keep jamming and more solos and extend the songs longer. And that's that's one of those reasons I really like the jam nights. The first time I ever played at the Rockin' Picnic, I used a Digitech Trio looper pedal, and you play a riff into it, and it matches like a drum beat and a bass beat to whatever you're playing, and you can kind of tweak it based on what kind of music you're trying to play, and it lines different stuff up for you, and it's kind of neat. Being another buddy that's somewhere around my skill level, Dan Blair, we taught some. Ooh, got a phone call.
Oh man, I apologize for
That's
that.
Totally gravy. Hopefully, it's not super.
It's all good.
All right. So, we ended up like playing a couple riffs into this thing and looping some riffs together to make songs out of them, and we just played a handful of songs through this little beatbox thing, and it was like, well, I mean, we could sing a verse and have a solo, and sing another verse and have a solo, and then do the chorus and then have a solo. So we just kind of did that the whole time. So I get it. Like when I first started learning how to play and figuring out what it was to play blues music, and not how easy it was, but how, I don't know, how you could play simple stuff and make it still sound good. I was just like, holy cow! All I want to do now is just rip solos all the time, because it feels so good. And
for sure. And I mean, for me, at the end of the day, right? And even in a blues band, I think, especially, audiences today in this world that we live in, right? It's all about right now. It's instant gratification. You look something up on your phone, or if you're bored for more than 15 seconds, you're on Facebook, right?
Yep.
So especially with crowds today, like if you beat someone over the head with guitar solos and overplaying, you're going to lose them.
Yeah.
You're going to lose interest. But finding the balance for me is where the balance for me is when you have enough space in a band where you can develop musical lines, right? And it's if you've got like if you look at like modern pop country now, the average guitar solo length is like 4 bars, right?
Yeah.
So you can't tell me that you have you have enough time to say everything you wanted to say as a guitar player.
Yep.
It's for me, and that's when I gravitate towards players that can really I don't know, expound that emotion, right? So you're playing a slow blues tune, and it starts off slow and then gradually builds over maybe 3 choruses, and then you'd finally get this end explosion of just, oh man, he really nailed it. And so for me, that's what I love to do, and that's what I love to have the room to do. And I mean, and I'm on the flip side too. I love music where it's well rehearsed. You know where the song is going. You know exactly the notes you're going to play. But so it's just fun having that balance of projects.
Yeah. It's definitely a different adventure when you go to a jam night and you just kind of solo and watch everybody and look for a head nod and kind of go with it from there. It's totally a different experience. It took me a while to get used to kind of doing that, and like I made a band called the Stockyard. We played a show at the Rockin' Picnic last year, and we did the kind of that thing where it's like, well, these are the songs, but let's just kind of jam through them. Let's not really like sit down and like, this is exactly how many bars this solo is. And we did that to like a handful of songs. So it's kind of nice to be able to like, all right, I'm getting ready to sing now. And you just turn around and give the drummer the head nod. Hey, Jeff, what's up? And then right into the song, and
it's a conversation.
Yeah.
Is what it is. And it's learning that conversation is, that's especially when you get with a group of guys where it's like, if I play with, say, Greg and Jake Merritt as the rhythm section, I've played with those guys now for close to 10 years in a couple different bands, and like I just know where their head's at. They kind of know where my head's at, and it's that musical conversation of like, all right, I'm wrapping it up now. Let's bring it back around. Let's get back into the song, or hey, we're all going to end on this beat. Sometimes it doesn't work that way, no matter how good you are. But like, it's just having that musical conversation within a song, and I mean that's when it gets really fun as a guitar player.
Yeah, as far as playing with somebody long enough to kind of get their style and mesh together well, like I play in a punk band called Three Finger Betty, and we play shows down in Des Moines, and at the end of every set, like I guess you could call us all, I don't know, we just call ourselves antisocial punk rock, but a lot of us have played a lot of different kinds of music, and we just like, well, at the end of this thing, let's just start jamming some stuff out and see what happens. So we usually just pick a key, whatever key the last song on the set is in, and then just start jamming in that that key. And it's kind of funny, like if you listen to a couple of the podcasts, the intro song and outro song is actually snippets from that.
Oh, rock on.
So like we're a punk band that plays this weird like fish trippy kind of punk jammy. I don't even know how to describe what we play at the end. We just call it the outro jam, and so like in the outro of this podcast, that's actually a loop of us and Three Finger Betty, like in a punk band that uses potty mouth and stuff like that. So and it's like, I bet you didn't realize we were all actually this talented. It's kind of fun to like drop some jaws at shows, or just like have people just be like, oh yeah, like you're playing and everyone's slam dancing and moshing around, and then all of a sudden you bust out the outro jam and everyone starts acting like they're 60s flower children, just sway into the music, and it's like this is cool, and we do go through a handful of different little bits and pieces there when it's like, all right, we've worn this riff out enough, and then everybody just kind of looks at each other and we give the nod, and then the drummer has a little ba-doom ba-doom ba-doodaloo, and then it's like, next riff, somebody make a new riff, and let's just keep going from there. And
for sure,
and it's kind of nice because we can, I don't know, our drummer's pretty good at it, like even though he's got the world's biggest drum set, what's up, Clint, he's pretty good at like looking over top of the drum set and seeing when people are getting tired of listening to us do our thing, and he knows when to give us the sign to end it all, because it's like you said, you're a guitarist and you're like, nah, just let me solo for 5 more minutes.
There you go.
But,
there you go.
But sometimes other people know best, so it's kind of nice to give them that headway too, and know when they're doing it.
For sure.
So how long have you been playing guitar then?
Well, I guess seriously, probably it's going on like 12 years now.
Yeah.
Going on like something like 12 years. So like I guess growing up, I against my will at the time when I was like 5 or 6, parents made me take piano lessons, which that's a lot of. There's probably, a hand or thousands of people are in the same boat. You started off playing piano, and some people keep going with it, some don't. But so I didn't want to. But they got me into it, and I started realizing what I was playing at the time I didn't really care for necessarily, but it came fairly easy. And so I took 12 years of piano lessons, and
oh, nice.
And so I actually credit that, and I tell folks a lot of times, like, I get asked around home, like, being the hometown kid, hey, can you give my my son's like 6 or 7 years old, can you give him guitar lessons? And I would love to, I just don't have time. But I always encourage folks too to say, like, if for younger kids, like, hey, the piano is such a foundational instrument.
Yeah.
I would argue that a lot of music is, can be derived from the piano, right? Because it's all the notes are laid out right in front of you, and it just gives you such at an early age, an understanding of how music works and notes and being able to. Sorry, I'm rambling here, but
no.
Get back on track. So I took 12 years of piano lessons, but when I was in high school, I kind of through several different ways and several different folks. One of my buddies and I, we stole the high school guitar that they had that nobody ever played, and the really crappy practice amp, and so we started working at that and started playing a little bit, and then I want to say it was my junior or senior year. I heard that a band called Cheap Drinks, so insert Chris Carr here and Jeremy Ober at the time. A band called Cheap Drinks was playing. They were opening up for they were opening up for Brandon Scott Sellner.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with Brandon.
I'm not.
I think he was originally from the Minnesota area, but he played a lot in Iowa. Killer blues player.
Yeah.
Look him up sometime.
All right.
He's located down in Georgia now, I believe. But so Cheap Drinks was opening up for Brandon Scott Sellner, and I was starting to dig the blues. I was starting to get into. I'm like, I got to go to this show. They were playing at the Larimar.
Nice.
So I don't think it was legal for me at the time to be there, but I actually snuck in.
Yeah, underage or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if they have. Some establishments have their own, rules, and some cities have their own legalities.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I think that was before the law came out. That
it
was because now I believe I want to say it's like 9 or 10 o'clock. If you're a minor, you're not able to be in bars if they don't serve food or.
Yeah, there's.
Don't hold me to that.
Yeah,
but,
and it depends on the city too. I'm pretty sure, but yeah.
So at any rate, I snuck into this show, and I'll never forget. And Jeremy still plays this amp to this day. I remember seeing his 5150 amp and a Les Paul up on stage, and Chris Carr's rig, and then they came out and they played a set, and I think they played a set or two before Brandon. Then Brandon came out and played, and I just remember, like, I got to do this.
Yeah, man.
I got to do this. This is like being on a stage. The Larimar's not a huge place, but they had a stage at the time, and I just remember thinking, man, I'd love to be that guy.
Yeah.
Up on stage doing that. So that's, I don't know, that's ultimately when it kind of kicked into a little bit of an overdrive of like, hey, I want to start practicing a little bit more and getting more into it. So yeah, I went to, after high school, graduated, went to college. That's when things got a little bit more serious and started spending more like the 2 and 3 hours, 4 hours at a time practicing, and eventually, and long story short, I ended up at Iowa Central for a semester.
Nice.
And that's where I met all the boys in Jay Clyde, right? So I met Greg and Jake. I met Corey at that time. Jared Leppert, who was another guitar player, who was the original guitar player in Jay Clyde. So I know you asked me how I got started playing guitar, but this is all kind of weaves into it, right?
Yep.
So I got into I remember wanting to be in a band, and So there was a girl that went to school at Iowa Central named Catherine Dillon. She's from here in Fort Dodge. I believe she lives out in Portland, Oregon, and now. But she was like a huge Janis Joplin fan. So as I said before, I was like really into blues and so we kind of connected. It was like, hey, we should like play some shows, and I think we got a show actually up here in Humboldt was the first actual show I played.
Yeah. Do you remember where it was at?
It was what they call it, like Art in the Park or
Yeah, that's it. Art
Yeah.
in the Park. I mean, they used to have it in a couple different places, but yeah, totally, dude. That's
so
cool.
it was Art in the Park, and I played. All I did was play acoustic and backed up Catherine singing, and there was a guy who came up to us afterwards, and he's like, "Hey, you know, Catherine, your voice is really good, and man, do you guys have a band?" And no, not necessarily yet at this point. And he's like, "Well, I've got this show in Fort Dodge." I'm getting the names mixed up. It was another type of art festival, and he's like, "If you guys could put a band together, we'd love for you guys to do like a half an hour set."
Yeah.
So insert Greg and Jake Merritt were both there that day, and we're like, "Hey, Jake, you play drums. You know, would you like to do this? Would you like to play a show with us?" And he's like, "All right." And then Greg, he didn't actually play bass at the time. I knew he knew how to play bass, but you know, he was a guitar player. He's like, "Greg, would you play bass for us?" All right, sounds good. And so it was just like, okay. And that's where, I guess, tying it back around to how long I've been playing guitar, that's when I feel like I came into my own being as a player.
Yeah.
Just because we actually got together, we were practicing, and I was having to woodshed tunes, and ultimately, that was the beginnings of Jay Clyde. It's kind of a funny story. Corey and I gave him crap all the time for this, but Corey Waller's joke is that he had to break up my band at the time to start his own band.
Yeah.
Which I'll just say that Jake and Greg and Corey and all the other guys in Jay Clyde, they've played together for years before Jay Clyde.
Yep.
They used to have a heavy metal band called Hour of Reckoning.
All right.
I don't know if you remember them from back in the day. They were excellent.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I'm not a big heavy metal fan,
Yeah.
but they were really good at what they did. So they'd been playing together for years, but you know, Corey kind of wanted to go this you know, I don't even know what style you want to call it, but kind of the country southern rock, classic rock type route.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how it all started. You know, Corey actually got that band going. My band with Catherine and Greg, we were kind of on the down low anyway. Weren't playing very much. So
Yeah.
So Jay Clyde actually played for a year as a band before I ever joined the band.
Oh, nice.
And then at a later time, Corey actually called me up one night. I still remember it. I was sitting at my parents' kitchen table, and he's like, "Hey, you're kind of into that country stuff, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "You're kind of into like the Eagles and kind of that classic rock stuff." Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I love it. You want to be in Jay Clyde? I'm like, "Finally." Like, why didn't you ask me sooner? But so yeah, from there it's kind of the rest is history. But all throughout that, it's yeah, just being in those bands and getting those experiences is what's really drove me to, you know, by no means a master, but
to become who you are today, you know,
to become a player and you know, hone my craft a little bit.
Yeah. You were talking about playing, I want to backtrack, but you were talking about playing piano for a handful of years first, and how important it is. And I will have to say that, like, you never really think too much about piano until if you don't play it, I guess. But, like, if you want to try and join, like, the junior high band or the elementary school band, and they're like, all right, you want to play the drums, you got to have a couple years of piano. And it's like, why? That doesn't seem like it makes sense, because the piano is notes and drums has 0 notes. And but then you're thinking, like, oh, you might be playing like a xylophone or something kind of like that, where you're going to need to know what, like, this layout of like a piano would look like for situations like that. It helps with rhythm overall, overlapping two different rhythms to make a
Definitely.
new rhythm.
Definitely.
And I could totally see where that would have been a strong point for you. I mean, I never played piano growing up. My sister played a ton, and you know, the older I get, the more jealous I am that I didn't play any growing up. But I didn't want to, so my parents were just like, "Meh, whatever then."
Oh yeah. Well, and for me too, you know, besides the piano being such a foundational instrument,
Uh huh.
um, you know, besides it being foundational, like if you're in piano lessons, like for me, I was very fortunate. My teacher in Gowrie, Iowa, her name is Linda Benson. She's one of the best.
Does she still teach?
She still teaches.
Awesome.
She's probably one of the best, you know, piano players in the area. Um, but So, and her whole deal is like, we're not just going to teach you how to play songs. She wants to give you a basis in theory as well.
Yeah.
When she teaches you lessons.
Yeah.
So that was my first introduction to chord structure
Yeah.
and how, you know, okay, this is, if you're in the key of C, this is how the 1, 4, and the 5 chord go together. This is why if you play the third of a chord over, if it's in the key of C, that it's going to sound good, or
Yep.
you know, and getting into, you know, all the deep theoretical of
Yeah.
like diminished scales and minor and pentatonic and things of that nature.
Mixing modes and
Yeah.
Yep.
So and I don't think everybody has that experience learning the piano, but for me it was just such a great foundation for the instrument, because when I started you know, diving into improvisation, you know, and learning about, okay, when I'm in the 4 chord of a tune, you know, I kind of want to play in this realm of notes, or
Yep.
you know, when I and this is kind of how I want to turn back around and get back into the 1 chord. That's that having that basis really just, you know, helped rocket my growth as a player.
Yeah.
So.
I will have to say, just from my own understanding, I guess, like I took music theory classes, so I understand how all that works out, but translating it all to an instrument and making it fit an instrument isn't always the easiest. Like I learned a lot of stuff on a piano uh 12, 15 years ago, you know, in high school during music theory classes. But then when it comes down to trying to apply it to a guitar, you know, like I said, 15 years later, and you're trying to pull all this stuff out of your memory, and you're like, I kind of know it sounds good, but it's not as easy to go 1 chord to 4 chord to 5 chord and then find a way to like end back somewhere where the 1 chord is going to be. You know, it's not always as easy as you think. And that's probably my biggest downfall, I'd say, is like a soloist and stuff. I like to just stick to something super simple and go with it. And I have a little bit of trouble expanding it a little bit further to make it, you know, a little bit more fresh, I guess. But
And I feel like I'm just right now just, you know, skimming the surface, right? You know, it works, like my knowledge base and what I know of music theory works really well for, you know, the bands that I'm in at this point. But you know, here as of recently, you know, I guess if you'd ask me, like, I can't name you like a lot of great bands that I like, or you know, there's probably a list, but like I'm really gravitating lately towards players, like different guitar players. Like for instance, there's this I mean, he's been around for quite a while, but I think he's finally gaining some traction, like Josh Smith out in California. He's a fantastic blues player. And you know, some folks will maybe understand, you know, there's a difference between kind of like the fundamental blues that, you know, of yesterday versus, you know, kind of mixing some of that jazz type influence into your playing.
Oh yeah.
And he does it so well, and so I'm as of late, I've been really kind of getting into that kind of world and diving into some more of those techniques and you know, just kind of practice and putting it in my practice routine of, you know, instead of just playing the same old blues riff that, you know, has been played a million times, trying to add some of those outside notes and make it more interesting.
Yeah, dude, jazz is tough to mix jazz with things because, like, you can just go on YouTube, watch like a simple lesson and be like, this sounds good if you play it like this, and here's like the music theory why. And then when you try and like break it all down in your head, you're like, I'm not 100% sure I still understand why this sounds good. I'm like, I get that it sounds good and it does, but it just, I don't I don't quite get it because like jazz is one of those things where I felt like somebody made a mistake in a song and it sounded bad, so they made it again, and they were just like, it's called an accidental. Get with it, buddy. And like I think that's how jazz ended up going. Was that is that your phone or my? That must have been something on my headphones, maybe.
Oh no, maybe I hit something.
Either way, yeah, crazy. But yeah, you were also talking about going to Iowa Central, meeting up with some other people there, and it's kind of crazy. Like, you go there, and there's so many people that are musicians that aren't in the music field because it's so tough to make a living just doing music. That there's
Oh yeah.
that they're pretty much grooming you to be a teacher or a player there, and that's pretty much all they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of difficult to go that route. So there's so many people, like the buddy I met that played guitar and bass. Like I met him in the accounting program, and it's just like, what are the odds that you meet an accountant, that also wants to play music? But then again, I guess we're both kind of good at numbers and patterns, and maybe it works out a little bit. I don't know.
I mean, I'm another case of that, right? So when I first went to UNI for my first semester of college, and my thought then was I was going to be a music teacher.
Yep.
And throughout that semester, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I had my best grades ever in school as a music major. But what I realize is when you get into that type of environment, there's a lot of and they got a great music program over at UNI.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of competition, right? It's about competing against not only yourself but others for the position in a band or the first chair and at the end of the day, I just want to jam and I just want to play. And I didn't want to go 4 years of school and have it ruin music for me.
Yeah.
So I actually work now and I'm in ag sales.
Oh, yeah. Well,
So, we get Jay Clyde gets it every now and then. We'll get done playing a show and somebody's like, are you guys going back to Kansas City, now, or headed back to Nashville? Like, no, we got to go to work on Monday.
Yeah, that is pretty awesome. I have gotten that a couple times when you go to a show and someone's like, "Wait, where are you guys playing? Where are you playing tomorrow night?" And it's like, I'm going back home. I live 2 hours north of here, and everybody else is from Des Moines, so nowhere.
Yep,
it is pretty crazy though. Like getting that, when somebody thinks you're that good, it's kind of like a good feeling where like, man, all this work wasn't for nothing, you put a lot of work into practicing songs and getting good and dragging all your gear somewhere and organizing everything, it's not it's not as simple as just showing up and playing and wowing the crowd,
Exactly. Exactly.
Let's talk about Iowa Central. I don't know if you we just became Facebook friends after that jam night, and I did post something. I did make an Iowa Central guitar, and unfortunately, it's not here to show you. But
I seen that.
Yeah,
I seen the picture of that. Looked really cool.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
It was like a Strat with the humbucker and the bridge. And,
yeah.
Oh man.
That was I actually some people at Iowa Central saw the guitar that I play for Three Finger Betty, which is like another dipped guitar. That's the one in my profile picture, if you've seen that one. But they were like, "Wow, do you think you could make another one of those?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll make one." So I made one and put a nice little Iowa Central decal across the corner of it, and put some lights in it, in case somebody doesn't play guitar, they can hang it on the wall and it'll chase the sound for the lights and stuff. So, I don't know. I made that and donated it just to kind of give it back to the accounting program because it helped me out so much. Hopefully,
that's awesome.
Go out and do my thing in the accounting world someday, and I guess I'm currently interning now, and I don't mind what I do, so I think it's a pretty good deal. I just wanted to give back somehow, and maybe just kind of also mention that I have raffle tickets for that available. Not that you have to buy any.
There you go.
But yeah, if anybody out there's listening wants a raffle ticket, hit me up. I got raffle tickets for that.
Rock on.
But yeah, Iowa Central is a great place. There's tons of musicians there, and I think it kind of is one of those deals where like not everyone from these small you were just talking Fort Dodge, go a 20-mile radius around it, and there's tons of awesome musicians. And it's no different than like, just because someone went to Iowa Central doesn't mean that they're not capable of doing awesome things. And you show up there and it's like, it's the same deal. There's great musicians that aren't in the music program that are, intelligent people that want to go out to these jam nights and things like that. And I was super happy I could bring Vince out to one of those, and he actually got up there and played bass with me on a handful of songs, and you were playing the leads on them and just making us sound extra good. So it was tons of fun. Like, I know I can speak for Vince here and say that like we both had so much fun at that, and like we attribute some of that to you being there and helping us out. And
it was a blast, man.
Yeah, having Scott Dalby there, and there's just something about showing up to one of those shows and just being like, hey, we're gonna play Stranglehold, and it's like, what key is it in? Well, here you go for it. And it's just like, this sounds so awesome and stuff. I don't have to worry about doing the leads too, and trying to feel like I have to compensate for anything. I just get to go out there and play some background and sing and have a great time.
I do feel bad at those a lot of times because, other than the songs that I play in bands, like I'm the type of guy like, oh, I love this song, but I don't exactly know how it goes. Like I might know I'll know the chord structure and I know kind of where the tune has to end up, but like the opening riff
Yep.
or the opening lead that they play, like I don't know all that. So I'll be like, hey, let's do this tune, like. Let's just kind of start it like this, and let's 1, 2, 3, 4, go, and then somebody who maybe knows the tune will look at you like, what the hell did you just do?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Well, it happens.
I'm like, hey, I'm just jamming, man. I'm
Yeah.
just jamming.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you did pretty good because it's not like I try to choose, if I'm going to go to a jam night, choose songs that I know nobody else would choose to do, just for the simple fact that I want to do stuff that I feel like I'm contributing something that no one else would contribute, no matter where the skill level is at, etc. So I play, like a Freddie King song, and it's, there's people that are just like, well, I don't even know who Freddie King is, and it's like, oh man, this, like if you go to other places, this is a jam night classic. Some places, and around here, I'm the only guy that likes to bust it out, so I kind of feel kind of nice for doing that, and I always try and throw a Nugent song in there if I can. It's not a necessity, but I always like to. Love him or hate him, Nugent songs are fun to listen to and play. And
oh, for sure.
So, I mean, it is just kind of fun finding your way through that and meeting all the nice people. You just run into just all sorts of crazy musicians. And you and I could probably just sit here and just start mentioning musicians for the next half hour and not run short on a list,
Definitely.
I mean, speaking of great musicians, after this podcast gets recorded, we're going to go to a show. I mean, maybe not together. We're not going to ride together and show up holding hands or anything.
I'll probably buy you a drink.
Oh, sweet. We're going to go to the show. It's a Lone Tree Revival.
Yes.
And that's a band that's, I mean, out of the Humboldt-ish, Fort Dodge-ish, somewhere around their area. And it's, I talked about it a little bit in my last podcast, but I'm pretty stoked for that show, man.
Oh, it's great, man. So Sean is one of the guitar players in that band as well that I've mentioned earlier. Jeremy Ober plays guitar, and then you've got a whole horn section with just some killer players. Like one is Dan Cassidy, who I can't remember the order of his career, but I know he worked at Iowa Central as a band guy there for a while. Then he was at St. Edmunds, but killer trombone player. And Dean Davis on drums. Have you ever got to see Dean play?
Yeah, I want to say I saw him at a jam night.
Oh my Lord. The guy is killer. He actually, him and Sean have played in several amalgamations of bands throughout the years, and when Sean was in Jay Clyde, there was a couple shows that Jake Merritt couldn't make, so we actually had Dean Davis come play drums for us.
Oh man.
And I kind of felt bad because here we are, a bunch of like 26-year-old Goombas out here doing our thing, and we're like, oh yeah, we want you. Hey Dean, you're probably one of the best drummers in the state, but like we want you to play Charlie Daniels tune, like But oh my Lord, it's so fun getting to play. I've got to play with him a couple of times, and it's just great to watch him.
Yeah, he's an older guy, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I did see him at a Patty's Pub jam night, and like I brought a bunch of my friends from Humboldt up to that, and we all just sat like on the side of the stage at one of the tables, and we're just like, holy crap, this guy's good.
Oh yeah, he's all about the pocket, man. Like, I've never played with anyone else. Well, I mean, I've played with a lot of great drummers, including like Jake Merritt, and a lot of it's the styles, right?
Yeah,
you look at a Dean Davis versus a Jake. Jake's can do everything that Dean can do, but like I feel like that they kind of differentiate themselves just where they gravitate as players.
Yeah.
Dean's got such a nice light touch and can Oh, it's great. Yeah, it's great to watch him play.
He's got the ability to, like, when I was watching him, I remember watching him. It's like, okay, the snare's on the beat, and now he's on the offbeat with the snare, and now he's back on the beat, and then you're like, oh, he's keeping most of the time with the cymbals. He's not even, the snare's just there for accent, and you're like, holy crap, this is like jazz band drumming almost, and
definitely,
it's just crazy to get to see those different styles, especially drumming, because I mean, I've got a drum set, I can play some stuff, but I'm not the greatest. I just pretty much have it here because I like to play, and it's a nice something else other than just playing guitar all the time. And
it's a whole different it's a whole different world to me. And
Yeah.
one thing, I guess, as a musician that I'm terrible at is counting. I know that's fundamental, right? But I'll admit it, I'm terrible at counting. And then you've got someone like Jake, for instance, who, will be doing a tune and he'll go into some off. I can't even tell you what it is because I don't know how to count it right. But he goes in some offbeat, just sounds amazing, and I'm just like, how the hell did you even come up with that, first of all, and how did you make it fit into this tune? It's just, yeah, it's a whole different realm.
Yeah, that was something I had to get used to, was like standing next to a drummer that was so good. And that's another shout out to Clint Blumker. He was like actually the very first person I did a podcast episode with. But I mean, he's so good that like sometimes he plays stuff and you're almost like, whoa, and it like throws
Yep.
you off of what you're doing because you're just like,
Yep.
that was awesome, And
No doubt.
I just shout out to like any drummers out there, because it's not an easy thing to do, and there's it seems like there's always a shortage of drummers, but then like I said, you go to these jam nights and it's like, where have all you guys been hiding?
Exactly.
Like
Well, like Scott Dahl, for instance, I can't remember, when did I first meet Scott. I want to say that they booked us because Jay Clyde played the Rockin' Picnic a couple years ago now.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't think Scott was the one who booked us, but Scott's integral in that festival
Yes.
as well,
Yep,
right?
yep.
So I think he actually came and watched us play at one point, and he came up and introduced himself, and he's like, "Yeah, man, I'm a drummer. Like, man, I love you guys, blah blah blah." And I'm just kind of like, "Oh yeah, hey, nice to meet you, Scott." And then he played the jam. I helped host the jam in Fort Dodge one night, and he was going to be the drummer for that. I'm like, "Oh, I get to play with Scott." And then he showed up and played. I'm like,
Yeah.
where did you come from? Where have you been all my life?
Yeah, yeah.
But and he sings and plays at the same time, which that's such a foreign concept to me, of being able to, I can barely play and sing guitar, let alone
That's not easy.
keep the beat and
Oh
sing
gosh.
as well.
And he's a good singer too.
Mm-hmm.
I will have to say, one of the funnest times I had going to jam nights was I was one of the ones at Patty's that I was one of the host musicians, where they, it's like I'll bring all my gear and I'll play when nobody else wants to play, and that's just what they call like one of the host musicians at a jam night. So just for people that don't know. But so I show up and they're like, "Oh, where's Peter at?" And I'm like sitting on the side, like, "Yeah, I'll hop back up on stage, grab my guitar, plug it in. Like, what are we playing? We're playing this. It's in this key." I think maybe like Brad Hofing was playing bass. Yeah, and he helped me out figure out what progression we're going on and stuff. And we're rocking through a song. I play a little bit of a solo, and I'm just like, God damn, someone's killing it back here on drums. And I turned around and it's Scott Dahl, and I got the biggest smile on my face, because it was like, this is awesome, Like it's not that I never thought I'd get to jam with him or not, but it's just like, it's cool to actually get down and just be like, God, who's just killing it back here?
And he's such a humble dude.
Yeah.
To boot, right? So like, he. Like, you tell him, like, Scott, you just killed it, and he's just like, "Oh, I don't know, man. I don't know if I done that right." It's like, no, you killed it.
Yeah, I did a podcast with him, and he was, every time he'd like say anything, he's like, "Oh, I don't want to feel like, I don't want to feel like I'm bragging or anything," and it's like, because he just doesn't want to say anything good about how good he is,
Exactly.
It's some of that might be humble or humility, and some of it maybe he doesn't know how good he is. I don't know. Like, the dude's awesome, and I love just getting to see him play, whether it's, obviously Chris Carr Band, and they got the Ned Freely Fun Band. Gosh, he's in like the Fabulous Uniques. I mean, he's played in handfuls and handfuls of bands throughout time, and that's not even scratching the surface, because he's been playing for quite a while.
Definitely.
And it's just, I don't know, it's just so nice to have somebody that I met at a jam night agree to come down here, do a podcast with me.
For sure.
Kind of just talk about what you've been up to, and get somebody else's perspective, because it's believe it or not, it's kind of tough to get people to do a podcast every now and then, depending on the weather, depending on who's got what going on.
Well, yeah, we had to reschedule.
Yeah,
like it was really crappy. We were gonna do it Tuesday night, but it was really crappy.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, man, it's like, I like what you're doing here too, just from the fact, like, we said, like, hey, there's some great musicians here, and it's just nice to. I mean, there's a lot of these people that maybe you and I know, but other folks from other areas just don't understand that, like, we got some great talent here, and in Iowa in general, I get caught up a lot of times with I visited places like Nashville, right? And I mean, to be fair, there's just millions of
Yeah.
millions of talented players there, right?
Yeah, they flock there.
But I think to say that the only good music comes from places like Nashville is just, I mean, it's ridiculous, because there's so many great artists, there's so many great writers, and there's so many great players that around this area, and in the Midwest in general. So it's just nice to see someone like yourself kind of trying to push that forward and push that message and try to bring awareness.
Yeah, man, like anything I can do, because it's just one of those deals you start getting on Facebook, and you're like, man, there's tons of people out here with guitars in their hands that are adding me as friends on Facebook, and you start adding them up, and it's like I got like 10 or 11 friends out in Dubuque now. I got, Quad Cities. I got like 15 people I'm friends with, and Cedar
Definitely.
Rapids and Iowa City, and I'd like to get out there and do podcasts with them. It's tough to ask somebody to drive 4 hours to do an interview for an hour, but
For sure.
But, like any chance I get where I run into other people at shows and stuff, I usually bring my equipment with just in case they want to, like, pop out to the car for a half an hour, do a quick interview. I've done a couple of those, with people that live on opposite ends of the state. So, and just anything I can really do, because, like you said, all of us around here might know each other, or at least have an idea of who they are. But now we've got a record of this on the internet, so you can go, people out in Omaha can figure out who we are now, and maybe invite someone to go play in Omaha. And I mean, there's good people out near Sioux City, and you go down towards the Keokuk area and Ottumwa area. There's bands down there that are just killing it too. And I'm trying my best to just talk to like literally everyone I can. And most of my stuff is going to be here to Des Moines, because that's where I do most of my work. But it is great to actually sit down and talk to you guys, because I am interested in this stuff, first off, and secondly, it's just weird at a jam night to be like, hey, how'd you start playing? And it's just kind of a weird thing to ask somebody, and this gives me the excuse to sit down and actually talk with people. So
No doubt.
You got any shows coming up? Because this is going to come out Thursday. So
It's going to come out Thursday. So you have to forgive me, because dates off the top of my head is terrible.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm the same way. I mean,
I will say, me personally, coming up here real soon, we were talking about my little blues project that we got going on.
Do you guys got a name for that, or is it just?
We're kind of calling it just the Ron and Sean Blues Band, which, not to exclude the other members in the band, it's just we haven't come up with a better name. So
yeah.
But I believe we're playing at the winery on Soldier Creek Winery.
Soldier Creek.
Here north of Farnhamville. Or not Farnhamville. Fort Dodge.
North of Fort Dodge, yes.
I live down by Farnhamville. But yeah, I believe we're playing up there April 5th.
Yeah.
So that'd be a good time. It's an early show from about 6 to 8. So come on out and drink some good wine and listen to some good blues. So
heck yeah.
But as far as like Jay Clyde and the mainstay, we're going to be putting out our summer schedule here really soon.
Cool.
I know that we're playing one of the more local shows that we're playing is in the middle of July. We're going to be at River Hops Brewing.
Nice.
In their back patio area. So I'm really looking forward to that show, just being kind of here local more so.
Yeah, it's Fort Dodge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So River Hops is a great place if I would encourage. And it, in general too, not just single out one place. Like we've got this onset of just great venues around Fort Dodge now.
Yeah.
So we've got Soldier Creek Winery. After that came Shiny Top Brewing.
Yeah.
And those guys down there, I've played a couple solo acoustic shows there as well. They bring in music every Thursday night, I believe.
Yeah.
Great place to play. River Hops Brewing now in Fort Dodge. He's been getting bands and getting places in. So really thankful that here locally we've got some great venues to play.
Yeah.
So
there's a resurgence of local music, and the great local musicians are crawling out of the woodworks.
Mm-hmm.
Jay Clyde Band, you guys got Facebook?
Yes, we're on Facebook. And we do have a website, but we will have all of our summer schedule listed up pretty fairly soon here. I think we got about 25 to 30 shows booked throughout the summer.
Sweet.
So And we're playing around the area quite a bit, but we're also, getting out to the eastern side of the state. I know we've got a couple of shows booked down southern Iowa. We'll be here, there, and everywhere this summer.
So yeah, check out the Jay Clyde Band Facebook page.
And we also do. Last year we recorded a 6-song EP album, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
And that is available on iTunes.
Oh, cool.
As well. So
just iTunes. You got is it on Amazon,
Google
iTunes,
Play, Amazon, Spotify.
Sweet.
It's there. So
sweet.
There's we're finally kind of diving into that. Like Corey, Neil. They've great writers. Greg and everybody in the band has contributed in some way, but we've been doing the cover thing for so long, and it's finally we wanted to jump into having hey, this is us, this is our product. So I'd be looking hopefully within the next year or so that we'll probably have a full album out as well.
That's awesome.
So
I'll have to grab all your links from you, put them in the description section for this podcast, and
definitely
I'll have to find your stuff on Spotify and add it to some of the playlists. I'm trying to make playlists for Iowa bands and put everybody on there. So
for sure.
I guess if anybody else has Spotify music, send it my way, and I'll throw it on the playlist, and you guys can share it up. But
definitely.
Is there anything else you want to add? Anybody else you want to give a shout out to? This has been a pretty good podcast with shout outs so far. So,
well, there's just I don't know. I guess I just say that I'm so blessed to have the opportunity to play with such great musicians and be from this area where on any given night I can play with some of the best in the state. The boys in Jay Clyde, we've been at it for quite a while now, and I wouldn't trade any one of them for the world. It's just it's a lot of fun. Music in general has just been such a blessing to me, and it's afforded me to do a lot of things. It's not my full-time living, but I've got to do a lot of great things, and looking forward to the future.
Heck yeah, man. Let's get ready to go see that Lone Tree Revival show.
Sounds like a plan, man.
All right. Thanks for doing the podcast. Appreciate it. There's another podcast in the bank. Thanks to everybody for tuning in to episode number 23. Ronley King was a great guest. I'm glad he got to come over and hang out with me for a while. Got to jam out on some of the guitars and stuff. Go check out one of his shows. He plays a lot, not as much as he used to apparently, but I still see him out and about, so go check him out, watch him play, go to one of those jam nights. I mean, there's a lot of them around the area, so you just got to kind of know the right people and befriend the right people on Facebook, and you'll see them. I try my best to share some of them on my personal social media, but yeah, there's tons of jam nights around here for anybody that wants to play some blues, some rock, some of the better known songs. There's tons of guys that can help you jam away the night, and it's a great time. Hope to see you out at one of those sometime, and I gotta say thanks again to Ronley King for joining me for the podcast. Check out the Jay Clyde Band online. I got some links down below. Make sure you listen to some of their music online too. It's available pretty much everywhere. You can buy it as well. Definitely worth a listen if you're from the area. You might want to hire these guys to come play in your town sometime. You never know. So check them out online. Thanks again to Ronley for joining me for the week. And also, I go around town every now and then. I hear somebody say, hey, you're the guy that does that podcast, and I really appreciate the fact that I can, in my little town and the surrounding towns and even in some of the bigger cities, I get people that know me as the Audible Farm podcast guy. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I'm glad everybody enjoys the podcast as much as I do. I'm glad I get to sit down and talk to some of the great people that make music and, the great personalities too. A lot of these people are really friendly people, and I'm really happy that they're joining me for the podcast, and I'm happy that you guys are joining us as well. So thank you very much to everybody. I really appreciate all the positive vibes. I'll catch you next week. Peace.